Hello everyone, I am Laethas and welcome back to another video, and it has been roughly a year since I made my first collection video, about a year since the channel first uploaded a video, so we're just going to do a 1-year collection update. Probably not going to be a haul for this month because shipping, the stuff that I'm getting that comes out this month will likely arrive next month, like at the beginning, so I'll probably just include that in next month's haul. But instead of a haul, you guys get a little bit of a collection update. I know I did one in January, but it's been a year, so it makes sense to do a collection update now. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to get started. There are volumes in the back, as you can see, and we will get to those after I get this first row done. But first off, we have Ubel Blot Omnibus Volumes 1 through 9, and this is a series I've been really enjoying. 0 through 5 to 6, I would say, are fantastic, and I feel it's like sort of, it's gotten worse in the more recent volumes, but if you like fantasy, like a dark fantasy series, then this is still a series I would recommend reading. But yeah, 0 through 5 I think are very, very strong. A little bit of 6 as well, but these more recent volumes aren't as good, I feel. Next up, we have Satoshi Kon's Opus. Excellent series. Cannot recommend it enough. This is one that you should absolutely read. Excellent single volume series. Definitely pick that up. Can't really say too many good things about that. Seraphim 266, a lot of wings. Unfortunately unfinished, but I would have loved to see where this goes, because of what exists, it is excellent. And if you don't mind things being unfinished, highly recommend checking this out, because this has one of the strongest sort of like starts to a manga that I think I've read. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't finished, but as you can see right here, by both Mamoru Oshii and Satoshi Kon, so very big names on that book. Next to that, we have Light Novels, Volume 1 through 4 of Spice and Wolf. I've currently read the first one, and I'm going to wait till I read through volumes probably 2 or 3 to pick up more of the series. I have a big backlog of light novels, so I really want to get through that before I pick up more, but yeah. I love Spice and Wolf. A lot better written than most light novels that I've read, but yeah. Love the anime, seen both seasons, and I think Season 1, these first 2 volumes, and then Season 2 covers the 3rd volume, and I think it skips the 4th volume, and then covers the 5th volume, but yeah. Gonna read these before I pick up more, because I have a big backlog on light novels. Next up, we have Nana, Volumes 1 through 21. Excellent, excellent, excellent series. Can't recommend it enough. Watch the anime as well. It's under the Shoujo Beat imprint, but it's more of a josei series than a shoujo, in my opinion. Just sort of themes and tone, much more adult. Especially since, like, you read the first volume and you're like, oh, this is not a high school romance whatsoever, not even close, but yeah, Nana, excellent series, cannot recommend it enough. Unfortunately, it is on hiatus for the foreseeable future, may never end, which is unfortunate, but you know, the great series, they never end, unfortunately. All the amazing series we never get ends to, always the end is indefinite hiatus. Moving on, next we have After Hours Volume 1, which is a Yuri series put out by Viz Media. If you're into Yuri, definitely pick it up. Other than that, it's still a pretty decent romance story, so if you're into romance, still would recommend picking it up. But if you're into Yuri, definitely recommend it, especially since it's only 3 volumes long. And then last up on this top shelf, we have Volumes 1 and 2 of SP Baby that is complete. If you're into romance, josei, shoujo of any kind, definitely recommend this. Short, sweet, and it's very well written for being only 2 volumes long. What's explained, or what needs to be explained is explained, and I definitely recommend it if you are into sort of a romance series. Moving on to the next shelf, over here we have Skip Beat Volumes 1 through 8. I've been meaning to pick up more, I just haven't done so. I don't know why, because I really enjoy this series. Definitely one I recommend over a lot. Yeah, just haven't picked up more. Really should do so, though, considering that I really do like the series. I guess I just haven't gotten around to doing so. Next to that, we have the single volume series put out by Tokyo Pop, Beautiful People. Unfortunately, Tokyo Pop almost always going to be out of print. This is no exception. But if you manage to find it, I definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed this series. It's a collection of short stories, sort of dealing with some really interesting philosophical concepts, so I really enjoyed it, and if you stumble upon it, I definitely recommend picking it up. It will almost assuredly be worth your while to read. And next to that, we have Berserk Volumes 1 all the way to 38. Now, Berserk is a series that I really enjoy. I saw the anime before I read the manga, so I kind of knew everything that happened in Golden Age that may have affected my enjoyment of the Golden Age arc. But in my opinion, the series has gotten better with each new story arc. I think I'm in the minority on that, but Berserk, really love the series. Unfortunately, it takes forever for volumes to come out, and they're super expensive because Dark Horse does Dark Horse things. Yeah, so these are like $15 a piece if you buy retail. Definitely do not recommend doing that because these are not excellent quality volumes. But the series is nonetheless very good, and I highly recommend reading it. Unless you do not like darker subject matter, I would definitely recommend picking it up. Moving on down here, we have sort of like an Inio Asano section. We have Solanin, Goodnight Punpun 1 through 7 complete, and What a Wonderful World 1 through 2 complete, and the first volume of Dead Demons Destruction. I love Solanin. Solanin's my personal favorite work by Inio Asano of all of these. Haven't read Dead Demons yet, gonna wait till it's complete, and then gonna check it out. Have full faith that Inio Asano is not going to disappoint me, because I have loved every work of his that I have read so far. It's been a while since I've read What a Wonderful World, but it's super interesting how it's a bunch of just short stories, but they're all connected in some weird, crazy way, so it's really neat and cool. And then Goodnight Punpun is just this really long, dark, depressing tale of one guy's life. Definitely recommend all of these. I think they're all worth reading. Solanin, your mileage may vary more depending on where you are in your life. I would say, late high school, early college, or just out of college would probably be the best time to read Solanin. Yeah, that's my favorite work so far of Inio Asano's, but I've loved every single work of his that have come out. Except for, I haven't read this yet, obviously. Have full faith that I'm going to love it, because he hasn't disappointed me thus far. But next to that, we have Tokyo Ghoul, volumes 1 to 14 complete. Really enjoyed Tokyo Ghoul. Can't wait for Tokyo Ghoul Re, which is right here, volumes 1 through 4, which is up to date. However, I'm probably going to stop collecting Tokyo Ghoul Re, because Viz Media announced a box set for the first season of Tokyo Ghoul, which leads me to believe that the box set for Re will come out whenever Re is done. So I'm probably just going to wait for that, and it'll probably be cheaper, and I'm going to have a nice little box set for that series. That's just rumor or conjecture that I've come up with. There's no confirmation that Re will get a box set, but considering that Tokyo Ghoul is really popular and got a box set, I would find it hard to imagine that Tokyo Ghoul Re will not. So I'm probably going to stop collecting the singles until either it's been a while and there's been no box set, or the box set comes out and I just purchased that. But yeah, can't wait for that. Gonna be a while though, because 1 volume every 2 months, and we are way, way, way behind. Next to that, we have volumes 1 through 6 of Happiness. I've read volumes 1 through 5. It's been a long time since I've read them, though. I'm just basically going to wait until the rest of the series is complete before I'll probably reread it from the start. But, yeah, of what I remember reading, Happiness is an excellent, excellent series, and Volume 5 ended on an amazing cliffhanger, and I'm super interested, and it's very hard for me to not read the 6th volume. Yeah, highly recommend Happiness. Shuzo Oshimi has done an excellent job with this series. And if you're a fan of Inio Asano, and you've never checked out I cannot talk at all, Shuzo Oshimi, then I would highly recommend doing that. But yeah, Happiness is an excellent series. Cannot wait for it to get finished, and I can just read the whole thing. Next to that, we have Complex Age 1 through 6. That is complete. Cannot recommend Complex Age enough. I haven't seen very many people pick this up. One of the best series that I've read in recent memory. Incredibly emotional and powerful. If you are into sort of coming-of-age story that's not about teenagers, sort of like more figuring out what you want to do with your life, reminds me of Solanin in that aspect, then Complex Age is absolutely a series I recommend picking up. One of the best that I've read recently. And next to that, we have Oh My Sweet Alien, which is just a single-volume series, or single-volume omnibus, put out by Yen Press. This is a nice, fun, sweet, sort of husband and wife adventures type thing. Yeah, if you're into, like, more quaint, I guess, then, sort of like a quaint comedy, not super calming, but more just like a fun comedy, with fun antics, then I'd recommend picking up Oh My Sweet Alien. Moving on down to the final shelf before we move into the back, over here we have Sakuran. This is a Moyoko Ano work put out by Vertical. It is about a courtesan and sort of her experiences. Very interesting. Out of print, unfortunately. But it has a metallic cover to it. You can probably see, yeah. You can see the reflection of 2 Love Rouges right there. But it is out of print, so it's kind of expensive, so it's hard to recommend it because of that price tag. But if you can nab it for around retail, then I would recommend doing so. Next to that, we have the first 3 omnibus volumes of To Love Ru, which contain the first 6 volumes. I've read the first 2 omnibus volumes, and I'm probably going to read these a couple omnibus volumes at a time going forward, just because I tend to enjoy reading more material at once than volume to volume. There are a few series where that's not the case, but with To Love Ru, I have a feeling that that is going to be the case, so I've not read this volume right here. Next to that, we have Cutie Honey A Go-Go. I'm going to wait until I read the original Cutie Honey before I read this sort of spin-off or reimagining or whatever, so haven't read this yet, but as soon as I read the original, I will give that a read. Next to that, we have Dragon Half Volume 1, which has this nice metallic cover to it. Really like metallic covers. They're really nice looking. They show wear more easily, but I still think the shine looks really cool. There's going to be 3 of these volumes. I'm just going to wait till they all come out and read them. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to like the series, and 3 volumes is not a very big commitment. So yeah, haven't read this yet. Gonna wait until I get all of those volumes. And next up, we have a little bit of my Yuri section. We have Girlfriends and Kisses, Sighs, and Cherry Blossom Pink by Milk Morinaga. Girlfriends is excellent. If you want to get into Yuri, this is the #1 recommendation, is read Girlfriends. Excellently done. I absolutely love it. Kisses, Sighs, and Cherry Blossom Pink is good. And it's going to be cheaper because it's only 1 volume, but Girlfriends is still better, and I really love... I basically love everything that Milk Morinaga's done that I've read. We'll get to some more of her stuff later. But yeah, definitely recommend Girlfriends if you're thinking about trying a Yuri series out. Very good. Next to that, we have Bloom Into You 1 through 4, up to date. I think I've read all of this. I read the scans online a long time ago, and I'm just collecting the volumes. I think Volume 5 is out in Japan. So I'm going to probably wait until the series wraps up, then binge it, because I don't imagine it'll be overly long, because most Yuri isn't. I think the longest one currently is Whispered Words or Citrus at 9 volumes both. Both of them are 9 volumes long, so I don't imagine it'll get too long, but it may. I don't think that'll be the case, though, but I will be reading that when the entirety comes out. Next to that, we have NTR Netsuzo Trap 1 through 4. Definitely not a beginner Yuri series. This is Yuri. It's Yuri fan service. I would only recommend it if you are so far into Yuri that you do not care if that is all that is in the series of any substance whatsoever, is just girls making out. But if that sounds at all interesting to you, then this is one you're going to be very pleased with. 6-volume series, Volume 5 coming out very shortly. And, you know, we're almost done. I'll read it through all the way, because I think I've read through, Volume 3. But, yeah. I wouldn't say it's good, but I very much enjoy reading it. We're going to move on to the next series, Volumes 1 through 3, Complete of Hana and Hina After School, another Milk Morinaga series. Another Yuri, excellent, I really love this one. I'd still say Girlfriends is better, but this is still a really good series at only 3 volumes. I don't really think I have to say much about it, because if you're a Yuri fan, you've likely already read it, or you know about it and want to read it. And if you're not a Yuri fan, read Girlfriends. That's how it works. And next to that, we have Volumes 1 and 2 complete of Gaku and Polizzi. Another Milk Morinaga work. This one is much, much weaker than all the other ones I've shown. Definitely not a must-have if you're a Yuri fan. Don't go out of your way for it, because I think Volume 2 is out of print now. It wasn't when I got it, but I don't think it was in print for very long, so, you know, it's not, don't go hunting for it. If you stumble upon it and it's a decent price, maybe pick it up to see what it's about, but I would not go out of your way to look for this series, unless you just want to own all of Milk Morinaga's manga. Next to that, we have The Ancient Magus Bride, Volumes 1 through 8. I've read 1 through 7, and I've come to the decision that I'm going to wait till it's all out to read it, because I've been loving the series from Volume 1 to Volume 7. It's gotten better every volume, and so I feel it's going to be worth my time to binge the series once all the volumes are out. Though only Volume 9 is out in Japan right now, so I don't know how long the series is going to end up being. But definitely a series I recommend you checking out. Next to that, we have Volumes 1 through 3 of How to Build a Dungeon, Book of the Demon King. This is fan service, the manga. Borderline hentai. Just barely not. The stress on the barely. You know if you want to read this or if you don't want to read this already, so not going to spend too much time on that. Next to that, we have Beasts of Abigail 1 through 3. Volume 4 is the final volume of the series, and I think it's going to come out in October. If you're interested in getting into a shoujo series, or you like shoujo, definitely recommend this one. Very, very good, and it's only 4 volumes long. It's very short, so if you're interested in a shoujo series, this is one I would definitely recommend. It's very, very strong. I kind of wished it went on longer. I think 7 volumes would have been a good length, 7 to 10. But it is ending at Volume 4. So I've read all 3 of these. It's very strong. And yeah. Next to that, we have Yokai Girls Volumes 1 and 2. I read the scans a while ago. Can't remember how many volumes of that I read. But I've been picking up these volumes as they've come out. If you like Monster Musume and those types of series, you're going to like this. If you dislike those series, then you probably won't like this. Not really much else to say. It's a Monster Girl series. Yeah. Next to that, we have Unmagical Girl Volumes 1 and 2. I think that's all that's out in Japan as of now. There's not a whole lot of information on this series. online, aside from 7C's website, which doesn't give future details because they don't actually own the series itself. They only own the license for it. Yeah, Unmagical Girl 1 and 2. I didn't enjoy Volume 1 a whole lot, but it was intriguing enough for me to get Volume 2, and I really loved Volume 2. But, yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about the series. There's a lot of conflicting information. Mal says it's 3 volumes long and complete. Manga Update says it's ongoing at 2 volumes, so I really have no idea what the state of this series is. But I will continue picking it up. Probably read it volume to volume because it's more sketch comedy and not this giant overarching story. Next to that, we have Flying Witch, volumes 1 through 5. Very calming, very fun series. Well, fun might not be the best word for everyone, but it's very calming, very relaxing. You can just read this whenever. Would not recommend binging, so this is one of the few series that I read volume to volume. Gets a chuckle out of me every volume. Very peaceful and relaxing, so if you just want some fun comedy that doesn't make you think too hard and you just kind of chill and read and calm your mind, highly recommend Flying Witch. I really, really love the series. Next to that, we have She and Her Cat, which is a single volume series by Vertical. Really, really excellent. I really, really love this manga adaptation. I think it is much, much better than the anime. Both anime series that came out. Highly recommend checking it out. Very interesting sort of take on a unique perspective is what I will say. And next to that, we have not the Garden of Films, but the Garden of Words. It's been a while since I've read this, so I have no idea how accurate my memory is of how good the series actually is, or what is just me trying to remember what I thought about the series. But if you're a fan of the anime, pick this up and read it. If you have not seen the anime film, do that. If you did not like the anime film, maybe don't pick this up, though I do think this gives some good context. This has more contextual sort of background details, whereas the film has more emotional sort of weight to it. But I really enjoyed this story, and yeah. Moving on to the very, very bottom, we have A Girl on the Shore by Inio Asano. This has been talked about at length by a number of people. Depending on who you are, you're going to love it or hate it because of the subject matter. Do some research into it. Know who you are as a person. If that subject matter perturbs you, maybe stay away from it. But if you are okay and comfortable, well, maybe not. Comfortable is maybe not a good word to use, but you can read it and tolerate it, then I highly recommend reading it. Otherwise, maybe give it a pass, because it does have a lot of objectionable material in it, and material that you might not find you want to be reading about. But if you can stomach it, highly, highly recommend it. Very excellently done. And next to that, we have Parasite, volumes 1 through 8. It's Parasite, very famous classic series. I preferred the anime, though I think more people prefer the manga. But the series is excellent nonetheless, and I suggest you consume it in some format, regardless of whether it's the manga or the anime, or maybe both. Maybe just consume it in both forms. Next to that, we have Seventh Garden, volumes 1 through 8, complete-esque. The series is currently on hiatus at volume 8, and I don't know if/when it will return. Really liked volumes 1 through 5, thought it was super interesting. It started to wane on me for volumes sort of 7 and 8. 6 was pretty good, but it went in a direction that I don't particularly like, and I wish it had not gone in that direction, because I don't feel that the weight or the way the story is presented was supposed to go that way, I guess. I don't agree with the decisions that were made. But it's still, I can still read it, but I wish it would have gone in a different direction. But I will continue to pick it up, see where it goes, if it ever gets off of hiatus. Yeah, there is Seventh Garden. Next to that, we have A Silent Voice, Volumes 1 through 7 complete. It's a silent voice. It's excellent. Read it if you've not done so. There's a box set by Kodansha. Go pick that up and read it. Nothing much else to say about that. Just read it. Yeah, that's it. Done. No more. Moving on. Excellent. Read it. If you don't, you're missing out. Next up, we have Mercy Ilago, Volumes 1 through 6. I've read 1 through 5. Gonna wait to pile up a few volumes. If you like high action, high octane action, fun, wacky-esque, more just over the top and crazy Gurren Lagann-esque stuff. Maybe not giant robots throwing universes at each other, but in that same vein of we're gonna do stuff because this is a fictional story and we can. You'll love this. This is gonna be your bread and butter. You're gonna have a ton of fun, and you're gonna be reading all these volumes and having a great time. If you don't particularly care for that, maybe you won't enjoy it as much. But it does have a nice, interesting sort of mystery-esque element to it. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes that is interesting to watch unfold. Next up, we have Kiss and White Lily for My Dearest Girl, Volumes 1 through 5. This is more like a Eurytopia series where everyone in the all-girls school is a lesbian, because that makes sense. It doesn't focus on one group one couple. It kind of changes every single volume, which I don't particularly enjoy a lot, but I still like reading it. Some people prefer that over the focusing on a single romance. Yeah, if you're a Yuri fan, your enjoyment's going to vary volume to volume, but I feel as a whole, it's worth picking up if you like Yuri. Other than that, the romance is okay, but if you're not into Yuri, I'm not sure how your mileage will vary. You'll probably have to give it 1 or 2 volumes to really find out for yourself. Yeah, it is a Yuri series that I would say on the whole is worth picking up as a Yuri fan. Next to that, we have volumes 1 through 3 of The Case Study of Vanitas. Volume 4 set to come out, I think, in August. I've been enjoying it. I want to see where it goes. Really not much else to say. This is the same author that I believe did Pandora Hearts, so I've not read that series, so I can't really compare. But I've been enjoying this series. Not a 10 out of 10, but enjoyable enough for me to continue picking up the volumes. Next up, we have a bunch of single-volume shoujo series. Heaven's Will, Yume Kira Dream Shop, Wanted, Ion, Kamikaze Girl, Short-Tempered Melancholic, Gabakawa, SOS, and Times 2. Some of these are better than others. I would say, I remember SOS and Times 2 being very good, Short-Tempered Melancholic being good, Yume Kira Dream Shop being very good, Wanted was decent, Heaven's Will was decent, Ion was decent, Gabakawa was decent, and Kamikaze Girls had Yuri undertones in it, so it's hard. It's very hard to rate these because a lot of them are different. I would really have to go in and reread them and analyze to sort of give a list as to which ones I think most people will enjoy over others and why certain ones, what's the appeal of each one, but yeah, I did enjoy at the very least, I enjoyed every single one of them, but yeah, I am going to cut real quick and move into the back, right there, up there, and there's some, let's see, back in yonder, back, I guess you can't see it, but yeah, we're going to be moving back into there after I cut, so see you guys in a little bit. Alright, we are back, and I have moved the books off of the front section of the shelf, and we are in the back section of the shelf. And I'm going to have to go much, much faster because that took a long time. But first off, we have Prison School Volumes 1 through 9. There's going to be 14 of these omnibus volumes by Yen Press. If you want an absurdist sort of sexual comedy, would recommend. Otherwise, give it a pass. It really doesn't have much more value than being that absurdist, over-the-top, sexual type comedy series. I don't really think there's much else overly special about this series. Moving on, we have volumes 1 through 21 of Doro Hidoro, which is a series I definitely recommend. This series is so fascinating to me. All the stuff that Q Hayashida was able to put in here and have it all make sense astounds me. But yeah, Doro Hidoro is a series I definitely recommend checking out. And these volumes are very, very nice, I must say. Excellent seinen series. If you like those mature, dark, gritty, not so... It's not edgy either, so it's dark but not edgy, which is always good. Or at least, not super edgy. There's a little bit of edge, but not enough for me to be like, this is like an edgy series, but it's fun. It's wild, crazy, and a lot of nonsense goes... Well, nonsense, more like, this can happen, and it makes sense for whatever reason. But moving on, we have Helter Skelter, Enclosed Called Fat, and Pink. Helter Skelter and Pink are by Kyoko Okazaki, and Enclosed Called Fat is called by Moyoko Ano. These are all single volume josei series, all of which I highly recommend. Pink and Helter Skelter being high recommendations, and Enclosed Called Fat being a regular recommendation. Definitely check all three of these out, especially Pink and Helter Skelter. Very, very unique and interesting stories. Next up, we have Shiver by Junji Ito, which is a hardcover release, and I wasn't a big fan. Probably not going to pick up too much Ito. I've heard great things about other of his stories. It's just I'm not a big horror fan, and I wasn't overly enthused with sort of the style of these stories. It didn't really grip me all that much, so probably going to give a pass to Ito in the future. Maybe I'll pick up another work of his in a while down the road, but for the near future, probably not going to be picking up more. Next to that, we have Fushigi Yugi Vizbig Volume 1. I didn't really enjoy this all that much, so probably not going to pick up any more. Might sell it at some point down the road. Well, I probably will sell it at some point down the road. I just haven't had a need to do so right now, and it's only one volume, so it's not really taking up very much space right now. Next to that, we have volumes 1 through 3 of Vizbigs for Rurouni Kenshin. Not much to say about this series. There's been a lot of controversy with the author recently, so I'm just going to hold off for a while, because it's a little bit hard to read the series without thinking about that. So, I'm going to keep these, decide whether I want to pick up more later, but for now, these are in the collection. And last up on this top shelf, we have Axe, alternative manga. Only get if you're into super weird art housey stuff, otherwise give it a pass. Very, very niche appeal for this book. Moving on down to this shelf, we have Voiceover Seiyuu Academy 1 through 12. It's decent, but there are other shoujo series I would purchase or pick up or read before this. It's good, it's fine, but it's not amazing. Next to that, we have volumes 1 through 9 of Raiders. Most disappointing series in my opinion. I thought volume 1 had a lot of potential. And as the series went on, I was just enjoying it less and less and less. But yeah, it's supposed to be a super action-heavy series, but I didn't enjoy it all that much. I didn't think the paneling was very conducive for an action series. But yeah, one interesting to note about this series, though, is it's a manhwa, so it's left to right. Yeah, moving on, we have Lament of the Lamb, volumes 1 through 7, complete. It was very boring for me. I think I got this series complete for $9. Read it it was very, very boring in my opinion. Would not recommend picking it up. Yeah, nothing much else to say. Next to that, we have Doll, Volumes 1 through 6 by Kyoko Okazaki, or not Kyoko Okazaki, Mitsukazu Mihara, who did Beautiful People. This was a very interesting and unique series. Very niche appeal, though. If you're thinking about getting it, I think it's part of Right Stuff's print on demand series, so I don't think it'll go out of print, or at least not soon. Read the first 1 or 2 volumes. If you're not feeling it, then you probably won't enjoy it. But it's very, very interesting nonetheless. Kind of short stories, but also kind of not, because they all exist in the same universe and are all very, very closely connected. And you see the same, like it's told kind of chronologically, though not entirely. It's very, very interesting, if nothing else. And I did enjoy it. It was a very unique read for me. Next up, we have Seraph of the End, Volumes 1 through 4. Maybe we'll pick up more, maybe won't. I'm curious to see where it goes, but I'm not in a big hurry to pick up more. I've seen both seasons of the anime. They were fine and fun. Kind of. It depended on my mood at the time. Sometimes I enjoyed it, sometimes I didn't. But I will probably pick up more, though not soon. Next to that, we have Ori-sama Teacher, Volumes 1 through 4. Again, probably won't be picking up more volumes anytime soon. It was fun, but the enjoyment has started to wane over time. Next to that, we have Volumes 1 through 3 of Train Man Densha Otoko, the Viz version. If you manage to find this for a good price, I definitely recommend picking it up. Very interesting and unique story. Yeah, if you find it, I'd recommend picking it up, though it is out of print. Next to that, we have Made in Heaven, Volumes 1 and 2 complete. This is a very unique and interesting Tokyo Pop title. It's a josei series. Really hard to explain without spoiling stuff, so I'm not going to, but if you are in the mood for sort of a romancy mystery type series, thriller-esque maybe, then I'd recommend checking these volumes out. I think they're out of print, but I still think they're decent priced. I don't think they're super expensive, but if you're looking for a josei feeling series with, you know, mystery, romance, thriller twist, or not twist, but you know, feel to it, then I'd recommend checking this out. Next to that, we have Volumes 1 through 2 of School Live or School Live. I think it's School Live. I preferred the anime. I felt it was more tense and had more meaning and weight. I have heard that the manga gets better over time, but I'm not in a big rush to pick up more. Though it's not completely out of the question. Next to that, we have Volume 1 of LDK. This was a shoujo series that I thought was just okay. Probably won't pick up more, but I might give it another volume, because I've only read this one, and I don't generally like to drop things after just one volume, though it has happened before. I usually like to get 2. You know, but I'm becoming more harsh with series and dropping after Volume 1, so maybe I will just drop it right now. Next to that, we have Mistress Fortune, another single-volume shoujo series, this one by Arina Tanemura. I think this one is the worst single-volume shoujo that's out of the ones I have. I wasn't a big fan. It was kind of okay, it was meh. Next to that, we have Portus, which is a single-volume sort of horror series by Jun Abe. I'm not a big horror fan. I thought, well, I didn't really like the Junji Ito, I'll give this one a try. Read it, wasn't amazed, it was just okay. Maybe I'm just not, I guess I'm just not a horror fan. I've never really been big into horror, so this is probably no surprise. Next to that, we have Crimson Shell, a single-volume series by Jun Mochizuki, which is the same mangaka as Case Study of Vanitas and Pandora Hearts. This was a little interesting, not amazing. Not sure if I'd recommend picking it up, because it is, I think, a $13 volume, which is pretty expensive. And it wasn't amazing, so maybe give it a pass, but it was an interesting read. Next to that, we have Mamama, Magical Director Mako-chan's Magical Guidance. That is a mouthful. It was okay. Don't think I'd recommend it unless you are a big fan of Okaido, which is the author of Monster Musume. Moving down to this shelf, my voice is getting very, very tired. We have Girls Last Tour Volume 1, probably almost assuredly dropped. I didn't really enjoy it. Next up, Bunny Drop Volumes 1 through 10, complete. Hard to recommend this series because of controversial material in these latter volumes. It's fine, and like it's not. If you don't want to read it, you're not missing out. It is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you don't have to read this series. It's not amazing. It's not going to change your life. But I did enjoy it, and I thought it was a fun read. Next to that, we have The Sacred Blacksmith 1 to 10 complete. I really enjoyed this. It's just a fun fantasy action series. Doesn't really have much other than that, but I did enjoy it for that. I think volumes 2 and 3 are out of print though, so maybe stay away because it might be expensive. Next to that, we have Biomega 1 through 6 by Tsutomu Nihei. I was not a huge fan. I thought it was confusing, and the pictures did not do it for me. They look awesome and cool and amazing, and Nihei is an excellent artist. It's just, I flew through these volumes so quickly, and I didn't feel the story was overly gripping. So, you know, unless you like cool art, I would probably stay away from this series. Next up, we have Tenjo Tenge 2-in-1s, Volume 1 and 2, put out by Viz. Probably dropped, unless I decide that I want to give it another chance, but that is unlikely. I wasn't a huge fan of this series. It feels like a shonen, even though it's a seinen series. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It's just wasn't my thing, I guess. Next to that, we have 4 Shiro Masamune works: Orion, Dominion in Conflict Number 1, No More Noise, and Black Magic. Let's go ahead and skip Orion. It's not that good. Dominion and Black Magic, you can check these out. They're fun. I really liked Black Magic out of all of these the most. Yeah, they are by Dark Horse, so they might be going out of print, or might already be out of print. You never know with them. Next up, we have Neo Parasite M and F. These aren't essential if you like Parasite. They're just anthology series. There are a few great stories in here, but I'd say a majority of them are just kind of meh. And there isn't much of a difference between M and F. F has a few more romance stories, and M has a few more action stories in it, but overall, they didn't feel overly different from one another. Next up, we have Appleseed Alpha. I wasn't a huge fan of this, but maybe if you're more into Appleseed, you'll like it more than I did. But I wasn't a big fan of it. Next up, we have Queen Emeraldis, hardcover omnibus volumes 1 and 2. I really liked Queen Emeraldis. It was very interesting, though a lot of the story didn't actually involve Queen Emeraldis herself, which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed reading this series, and if you're into classic series or Leiji Matsumoto, then I would recommend checking it out. Next up, we have Kindred Spirits on the Roof, complete. This is a Yuritopia-esque series. This is the weakest one I've read, I think, the weakest Yuri. It's either this or Gaku and Polizzi, but probably Kindred Spirits takes it. It's okay, it's not amazing, but if you want to own all the Yuri, maybe pick it up, but I didn't find it to be all that great. Next up, we have In This Corner of the World, the complete omnibus, and the quality on this volume is excellent, but as I was reading it, I was always thinking that Grave of the Fireflies was better, so I wasn't a huge fan of this. I didn't feel like enough happened for it to be worth the 3 volumes. I get that it wasn't supposed to be like the aftermath. It was supposed to be like what was going on before the war. Well, not before the war, but before the bombings took place of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I wasn't a huge fan. I think Grave of the Fireflies does a much better job of telling World War II story from the side of Japan. Next up, we have Breathe Deeply, which is One Piece Books release. This is really going to depend on who you are. I really liked it, though it's very dialogue heavy and very dry, maybe overly dramatic. I liked it a lot. Very, very interesting, very unique story that I've never really seen anything done in a similar way. The same thing is for Tenken as well, which is right here. But I feel like Tenken has a lot more wide appeal, but I really liked Breathe Deeply, and I recommend giving it a look. And Tenken, I would also recommend giving it a look. It has a very unique art style that I just can't pin down. This sort of fantasy, sci-fi-esque, post-apocalyptic, weird story. It's cool and very interesting, and I haven't seen anything quite like it. Next to that, we have All My Darling Daughters, which is a very unique series put out by Viz. With it's like a josei, but it's a shoujo, kind of. It's like in the middle, and it's about just kind of short series involving a few characters and their friends, sort of, you know, episodes in their lives, that kind of thing. Next up, we have the infamous Fire Punch, which some people, I think, love, and other people do not. I was not a huge fan of it. I feel like it was, like, edge to the max. We're gonna be super edgy because we can, and we're just gonna do stuff to be as edgy and as, you know, as edge as possible, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Sorry for the cut there, guys. Moving on, we have Golden Kamuy, which I definitely plan on picking up more volumes of, but I'm just waiting. I don't know why I'm not keeping up with the volumes directly, but I will be picking up more volumes of Golden Kamuy in the future. I just haven't, for whatever reason, been picking them up as they come out. Next to that, we have Samurai Legend, which is a single-volume series illustrated by Jiro Taniguchi. I would not recommend it. It was not great. Probably, you know, I will sell that probably very soon. I was not a very big fan of that series. Moving down to the very bottom shelf. First off, we have Smuggler, which is a single-volume series by One Piece Books. Interesting series, sort of like gang-related story. Or like, yeah, it's about a gang, or a guy in a gang, and I don't think he wants to be in the gang. So very interesting. Not a story you typically see. Next to that, we have Mayochiki, volumes 1 through 7. It's a rom-com. It's fun, it's okay, but it's not amazing. So, if you've seen the anime and you want to see how it ends, pick it up. Otherwise, you can probably pass. Next up, we have a 3-volume series, Ghost Diary. Interesting mystery, if not for the fact that it was incredibly obvious what the end was going to be from, like, the first or second chapter. So, it was too easy to guess, in my opinion, but it's fun, it's okay. If you're into mysteries, then maybe check it out. Next to that, we have Stray Little Devil, volumes 1 through 5 complete. This is out of print, so I would not recommend trying to pick it up. Supposedly a shoujo-ai, though not really. It's just a fun sort of fantasy series, but I would not go out of your way to pick it up because it is out of print. Next up, we have Ajin, volumes 1 through 5. I dropped, well, not really dropped this series, but I stopped collecting it. But I do want to give it another chance in the future. I just don't know when that is, because it is intriguing enough for me to want to pick up more volumes. But I just haven't found the right time to do so. Next to that, we have Prophecy, volumes 1 through 3. A very interesting series. Not the best, But if you are interested in stuff like cybercrime or stories involving cybercrime, then I'd recommend picking this up. Or crimes that are orchestrated via, you know, meeting up on the internet and stuff like that, with a very intelligent main protagonist, then I'd recommend picking it up. Otherwise, maybe give it a pass. Next to that, we have my only Comics 1 series, Sister Red, which is just the first 2 volumes. It could have been good if it had more volumes. It definitely had the potential to be good, but I don't think 2 volumes was enough to realize that potential, so it was just okay. It's out of print. I would not recommend trying to find it, just because it's kind of okay. Next up, we have Sickness Unto Death, Volumes 1 and 2. It's been a while since I've read this, though I do recommend enjoying it. Very kind of weird mystery type thing. It's really hard to say anything about it without getting too spoilery, but if you like mystery series, or series dealing with sort of psychological elements, then I'd recommend it. Otherwise, maybe not. Next up, we have Volume 1 of Knights of Sidonia by Tsutomu Nihei. This is definitely dropped for me, especially with volumes out of print. Didn't enjoy it. Wasn't a huge fan of Biomega. Yeah, that's probably the only volume I will ever own of that series. Next up, we have Welcome to the NHK, the novel. Would definitely recommend picking it up if you can find it. I think it's part of Right Stuff's print on demand series. Very, very unique work. If you liked The Catcher in the Rye, you will like that. Next up, we have Velveteen and Mandala, which is a single volume series by Vertical. This is super, super weird and crazy. Unless you are looking for something strange and weird and like nothing you've ever seen before, get it. If you want something normal, don't. This is as far from normal as you can probably get. It is really weird and wacky. And strange. Very hard to parse. Next up, we have The Flowers of Evil, volumes 1 through 11 in the singles. I would recommend picking up the omnibus volumes because the singles are out of print. And you should definitely do that because the series is excellent. You should definitely read this series. Shuzo Oshimi did an excellent job with it. Highly recommend checking it out. Next up, we have Devil's Line, volumes 1 through 10. I've read 1 through 7. Decided I'm just going to backlog this series for a while. Really, really well done. I love this series a lot. Cannot wait to pile up more volumes so I can just read a ton at a time, because I love this series a lot. Highly recommend it, definitely. Next up, we have Love and Hell, volumes 1 through 3, and Love and Hell Death Life 1 and 2. Definitely get volumes 1 through 3 of Love and Hell. Pass on Death Life. I think there's also an omnibus for volumes 1 through 3, like a all-in-one. Choose whichever one you prefer. I think the omnibus is slightly cheaper. Yeah, this is a series I definitely recommend. It was very, very fun. Death Life did not deliver. It was the same thing, but worse, whereas Love and Hell was very different and unique and wasn't really like a story I'd ever read before. A very interesting sort of romance developed as well. So definitely recommend Love and Hell. It's a fun comedy. And if you haven't read it already, I'd definitely give it a chance, especially with it being only 3 volumes or 1 large omnibus. Next up, we have Hanakimi 3-in-1s, 1 through 8 complete. That contains the extra volume After Story, which is not in the singles. I enjoyed it, and then as I continued to read, it got kind of boring in the midsection. It picked up a little bit towards the end. Yeah, if you're looking for a standard shoujo romance series, then I'd recommend it. I didn't think it was anything super special though, so I definitely recommend like skip beat over this, or like that's off the top of my head. I would recommend that over this, but it's not bad by any means. I did definitely enjoy this series, and I would recommend checking it out. Next up, we have Chibi Vampire 1 through 14 complete, Airmail, which is like a short story volume, and then Bites, which is like a character Bible type thing. This series, I think, varies a lot in price, and it's sometimes really cheap, sometimes it's not. But if you can find it, I definitely recommend picking it up. I think it's very, very strong. Like, for the most part, the series is extremely strong and very, very good. I think the ending is super, super weak, though. So if it weren't for the ending, this series would be an excellent, excellent series. But unfortunately, the ending is, in my opinion, very, very bad. But I would still recommend reading this series because it is a very, very good rom-com, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. If it only had a good, like, a really good ending, I would be very, I would definitely recommend picking it up no matter who you are, and at, good prices. But as it stands, it's really good, except for that ending, but I still recommend you reading it. I just cannot give it an extremely high recommendation. Next up, we have Record of the Fallen Vampire, Volumes 1 through 9 complete. This was a fun series, has some really excellent characters in it that I really, really liked to watch, but the plot kind of goes crazy. I feel like the author didn't know what they were wanting to do in the beginning, how they wanted to end it, and it just kind of got ridiculous towards the end. Yeah, if you don't mind that, and you really like characters are what draw you to series, and this is a series I would recommend picking up. Next to that, we have Midnight Secretary, Volumes 1 through 7, complete. This is a smutty, smutty, smutty series. If you're not into that type of material, then just don't read it, because that's why you would read this, is because you want to read a series like that. It's more fan service, basically. Next to that, we have World Trigger, Volumes 1 through 4. I'm probably going to pick more of it up in the future, I just don't know when. I am interested to see where the series goes, though it is currently on hiatus, at Volume 18, I believe, so, I don't know where it's going to go, especially with that hiatus, don't know how long that will last, but, yeah. I'm interested to see where it goes, though I haven't picked up any volumes in a while. Next to that is Just a Girl, Volumes 1 and 2. I've forgotten basically everything about this series since I've read it a long time ago. So, yeah. Not very memorable is what that means, so not worth going out of your way to pick up. But it is a shoujo series, I do know that. Next to that, we have R.I.P. by Mitsukazu Miharu. This is her weakest work that I've read. Definitely recommend her other works over this. It's not bad, but her other works are noticeably better. But yeah, that will do it for this shelf, and I'm going to go ahead and cut over to the other shelf. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Alright, here we are over at the other shelf, and we have Dive in the Vampire Bund, Volumes 1 and 2. The 2 Dojin volumes for Dance in the Vampire Bund and Dance in the Vampire Bund, the 3-in-1, 1 2-in-1, and 1 4-in-1 omnibuses, which is volumes 1 through 21. First series is 1 through 14, Sledgehammer is 15 through 17, and Scarlet Order is 18 through 21. I really, really like this series. I don't know why. I don't think it's amazing. But I really, really enjoyed it, and if you're looking for an action sort of supernatural series, this is definitely one I would recommend. The Sledgehammer Omnibus volume is out of print, which is unfortunate, because if you want the omnibuses to line up nicely, you're going to have to purchase an out of print volume, which kind of sucks. But what are you to do? I've read the manga Dojin, but I've not read the novel Dojin, so I can't say much about that. But Dive in the Vampire Bund, I really enjoyed as well, and I think you can still enjoy it without having read Dance in the Vampire Bund, but I would recommend reading at least Omnibus 1 and maybe like the first volume of Omnibus 2 to really, truly get the fullest amount of enjoyment out of Dive in the Vampire Bond, but Dive in the Vampire Bond is an excellent, excellent side story, which, you know, isn't very common that side stories are on par with or even better than the main series, but Dive in the Vampire Bond is really, really good. Next to that, we have Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash novels, volumes 1 through 5. I've read volume 1, seen the anime, which I think covers volumes 1 and 2, but I'd like to read up through 3 or 4 before I purchase any more of the novels, so yeah. Next up, we have volumes 1 through 7 of Citrus. You can fly through these volumes, they're very, very quick to read. I've read up through 6, intentionally not reading 7 to build up a backlog. It's a Yuri, more risque than most. Well, hard to say than most, because it's really hard to say what, you know, what the average Yuri is, but it is on the more risque side. But if you're a Yuri fan, definitely recommend it. If you're thinking about getting into Yuri, this is one you can try, though I would much more recommend either Girlfriends or Kaze-san, the Kaze-san series. There are only 4 volumes out total, and I think that's the same number that are out in Japan. But I really, really love this series. Excellent Yuri. Cannot wait for more. Next to that, we have Voiceful, which is a single volume Yuri, out of print, so I would not recommend going and chasing for it, but it is a decent story nonetheless. And next to that, we have another Milk Morinaga work, Secret of the Princess, which is very short and a very, very fun Yuri. If you don't want to spend very much money and you want to get into Yuri, or you want to try a Yuri series, then I'd recommend this one because it is only 1 volume, but I would still recommend either Girlfriends or Kaze-san still. Next to that, we have My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. Don't really have to talk about this too much because it's very, very popular and all over the place. Next to that, we have Sweet Blue Flowers, Omnibus Volumes 1 through 3, with the 4th one coming out very soon, and that is the last one. When that comes out, I will be reading this series. But as of now, I have not read any of it. Next to that, we have the the single volume Ruby series. There's another Ruby series called the Ruby Anthology series, which I will be picking up. But I enjoyed this. I don't know, you know, if you're a fan of Ruby, how that impacts your enjoyment of this, but I liked it. I thought it was fun. It wasn't amazing, but it was a nice, fun action series that gave me some background information on the characters. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Don't know if watching Ruby will impact your enjoyment, because I've not actually seen the Ruby animated series by Rooster Teeth. And up there, we have The Empty Box and Zeroth Maria, Light Novel Volume 1. Really need to read that. I will be reading that before I pick up any more. Under that, we have All You Need Is Kill. Very, very well-known and popular series. Based off of the novel. And the novel is also what inspired the film, or not necessarily inspired, but was the basis for the film Edge of Tomorrow. I would recommend it. I wasn't a fan of the ending, but, you know, that's personal preference. Next to that, we have Magical Girl Special Ops, or Spec Ops Asuka, Volumes 1 and 2. Probably dropped for me. I just kind of lost interest in the second volume. Under that, we have Gigantomaxia by Kentaro Miura, which is really, really cool. And if you want to see some great artwork, but don't want to pay for Berserk, go ahead and get this book. You will not be disappointed. I'd really like to see, like, because this is like, you're dropped into the middle of a story that should already be ongoing, but, you know, it doesn't exist. I'd like to see it exist, but it doesn't currently. Under that, we have Dolus by Maki Kusamoto. This is really weird. Unless you want to read something weird, I wouldn't recommend it. And over here we have From the New World, Volumes 1 and 2. Probably, almost assuredly dropped. Wasn't too into it. The anime is excellent, though, so I definitely recommend the anime. Moving on down, do not mind the novels. I did show Our Happy Time in a haul, but do not. We can go though. You saw them. We're good. We have Orange and Remember, which are manhwa put up by Tokyo Pop. Remember reminds me a lot of Inio Asano works. Next to that, we have The Strange Tale of Panorama Island. It is not worth the $70 to $100 that people are asking for on eBay. I did not pay that ridiculous price. I paid significantly less than that. But if you can find it for retail price, the artwork is really cool and the story is interesting. So if you can find it for a price that's not like stupidly absurd, then I would recommend doing so. Next to that, we have Battle Angel Alita, the hardcovers 1 through 3. These are excellent quality hardcover volumes. Unfortunately, Kodansha decided to release a box set sort of like in stealth mode, and so I didn't know about it until after I'd purchased all 3 of these. But I'm still probably going to pick up the box set as opposed to picking up the rest of the singles, just because it's going to be very similar in price to do so, and I get the box. So, and the extra goodie that box sets tend to come with. Next to that, we have Nijigahara Holograph, which is an excellent quality release put out by Fantagraphics. This is the Inio Asano work that you should definitely not start with because it is confusing, incredibly so. Yeah, I've read it once. I need to read it again to really pick out what exactly is going on, because it jumps back and forth between the future and the present, or the present and the past, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, very interesting. If you're an Inio Asano fan, absolutely check it out. If you don't know if you like Inio Asano, don't check it out, or at least not first. Wait until you know you like Inio Asano. Next up, we have the Record of Lodoss War, the Grey Witch hardcover novel by Seven Seas. It's kind of hard to read because the light's kind of doing weird things with glare and stuff, but I've not read this yet, so I can't comment on it. But the book itself is incredibly high quality. Next up, we have Kawurumori, Anything and Something. Only get this, it's kind of like an art book, but not really. It's like a short story collection, but it also has some weird tidbits in it. It's mostly just like a collection of one-shots for the sake of releasing a book with a collection of one-shots in it. If you want to see more Kawurumori art, then pick it up, but it is out of print, so would not recommend going out of your way to do so. Next up, we have A Bride Story, volumes 1 through 9. I really like A Bride Story. Very interesting sort of slice-of-life-y series that I've been enjoying, and I can read this one volume to volume, which is always nice. Definitely recommend picking it up. And these are really good value hardcovers because it's only $17 for hardcover. Wish they didn't have dust jackets, but I can deal with that. $17 for a hardcover is not bad at all. It's actually pretty cheap, and I'm happy that, you know, the series is getting nice treatment because it really is a very excellent looking series. Next to that, I have my Wolf Children hardcover. The film is much better, much better, but this is still not bad, and I really enjoyed reading it. Next to that, we have Vinland Saga, Volume 1. I'm debating. Well, I'm probably going to give the second hardcover a chance. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, but I've been told that Volume 2 gets much better, and that around Volume 2 is when it switches from a weekly magazine to a monthly magazine, so that's very interesting. Next up, we have Perfect Blue, Complete Metamorphosis, and Perfect Blue, Awaken from a Dream. This is new. This would be the only book in my May haul, so that's why I'm probably just going to do a June haul. I've read there are 3 stories in Awaken from a Dream. I've read the first one. It's kind of okay. The original, it's very interesting to see how much different the film is than the original work. Like, the difference is fascinating. I think the film is much better, but the book is still a very interesting read nonetheless, especially for just to see how different the film and the original novel are. It's very interesting to see. Next up, we have volumes 1 through 4 of Sekirei. I've read the first one, but I've seen both seasons of the anime. You know, if you want to pick this up already, it's just a battle harem action series. If that sounds fun to you, check it out. It's more than that, though. Like, the story is actually pretty well thought out and done, which is surprising. Normally that doesn't happen for these types of series, but this one is actually pretty well done. Next to that, we have Wandering Island Volume 1, which I have not read yet. Debating on whether or not I'm going to read this or wait and see how many volumes the series is in total before I decide whether or not to read this first volume. But it's by Dark Horse, so this may be the only volume that they ever put out for the series. You never know. Because Dark Horse kind of sucks. Next up, we have volumes 1 through 5 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. This series is fun. I really enjoy it. If you're not a fan of isekai stories or fantasy, then maybe don't. But so far, I'm having a blast reading it, and it's just a fun, good time. Next to that, we have Frau Faust, volumes 1 through 4. Fifth volume coming out, not for a while, I don't think. I've read volume 1. I really enjoyed it, really reminded me of The Ancient Magus Bride. But given that it's only 5 volumes, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to wait for volume 5 to come out to binge read the entire series. Yeah. Definitely reminded me of The Ancient Magus Bride, which makes sense because it's by the same mangaka. Last on the shelf, we have Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku, the first omnibus volume, and this was very, very fun. I imagine I would enjoy the anime of this more, so I will probably watch that and judge for myself, but I am going to be continuing to pick up the manga going forward. And we have Nyotaika, volumes 1 through 4. Volume 5 may never ever come out. This is one of the series Project H publishes that is not a hentai series. It is borderline, so it's kind of similar to How to Build a Dungeon Book of the Demon King. But this is more of a romance story than anything. Like a rom-com type thing. But very fun, though the last volume may never come out. Moving on to the final shelf, and my voice is going to die. But I got a couple box sets to do, but we're gonna muscle through this final shelf. We have Lychee Light Club on the far left, like Velveteen and Mandala. It's super, super weird, so it's very hard to recommend unless you're looking for something crazy. Next up, we have Moteki Volume 1. I'm gonna wait till Volume 2 comes out and binge read the whole series. Next to that, we have 5 centimeters per second. The complete manga. I personally prefer the manga over the anime, though I think most people prefer the anime over the manga. Definitely a series I recommend picking up, though. Very, very good. Next to that, we have Utsubora, the story of the novelist, a series I cannot recommend enough, and I want to see more people have it in their collection because it is truly a one-of-a-kind story that you will not read anywhere else. Super unique, super interesting, and just all around really well done, well told story. Next to that, we have Imperfect Girl, volumes 1 through 3 complete. I was not a huge fan of the series, though I will say that it ended up finishing and completing much better than I had anticipated it doing. So it improved, but overall it's not amazing. If you're into Nisio scene, then maybe pick it up, but this is not a must-read by any stretch. Next up, we have Voices of a Distant Star, another Shinkai-based manga. I don't think this one is good as 5 centimeters per second, or She and Her Cat, or The Garden of Words, but it's not bad. If you want to see the manga adaptation of the anime, then maybe go and pick this up, but I think the other ones are much, much better. Next, we have The Gods Lie by Kaori Ozaki. This was a really interesting sort of single-volume series that I would definitely recommend picking up. Has a lot of, like, it's a different type of story, but it's not so different that you've never heard of it before. Like, it's very comfortable, like, you'll understand what's going on and sort of the story beats, but it's not super, like, generic, if that makes any sense. Like, it differentiates itself enough to where it's kind of different and fun to read, and is going to give you something that other series don't. Next to that, we have My Boy Volume 1. So far, it's not gone in the bunny drop direction, but there's always potential for that. So I'm going to be reading these volume to volume, unless it really piques my interest and I decide, you know what, I want to binge. But so far, I'm going to be reading volume to volume. And up there we have Tropic of the Sea by Satoshi Kon. I did not enjoy it all that much, and I'd recommend you giving it a pass. It's just not super great. The art is really interesting and really good, but other than that, it's nothing special. Next up, we have Dawn of the Arcana Volumes 1 through 13. Highly recommend this series. It is very, very good. If you're not a shoujo fan, you should still check this out. It is very, very good, and I highly recommend it. Ray Toma did an excellent job on this series. Next up, we have Sundome, which I've read a little bit of, though it's been a very, very, very long time, so I can't really say too much about it, though it does remind me of The Flowers of Evil. So if you like that, this may be a series you want to check out. Next up, we have The Water Dragon's Bride, another Ray Toma series. I've read Volume 1, liked it, and I'm just going to wait and binge it because Ray Toma series are very, very quick to get through. There isn't a whole lot of dialogue per page. They're not very dense. And given how well she executed Dawn of the Arcana, I think she'll do an excellent job with this series as well. Next up, we have Astro Lost in Space Volumes 1 and 2. This is a 5-volume series going to end in December. I've only read the first volume, just going to wait for them all to come out and then binge it. But this is one of the better, newer series that has come out in English. Next up, we have I See in the Sunflower by Mitsukazu Mihara. Out of print, but if you manage to stumble across it, I definitely recommend picking it up. I still think it's, or at least I think it's cheap on Amazon currently, so you might want to pick it up, but very interesting short story collection, very similar to Beautiful People in that regard, and I highly recommend checking it out. And last up on this shelf, we have Whispered Words, Omnibus Volumes 1 through 3. This is a very good Yuri series. Unfortunately, the translation isn't super good. This is one of One Piece Book's earlier releases. But I still would recommend picking it up. It is a bit of a longer Yuri series at 9 volumes in total, because these are 3-in-1s. And it is very well executed in my opinion. Not as good as Girlfriends or some Milk Morinaga series, but it's still very good nonetheless. And I highly recommend checking it out if you are a Yuri fan. And even if you're not, the romance is still very good. So if you're a fan of romance series, this is one I would take a look into. But yeah, that'll do it for this shelf. And now we're just going to move on to the box sets. So I'm going to cut real quick and see you there. Alright, here we are at the box sets, and my voice is about to die. Over here, we have the Nazca of the Valley of the Wind box set by Hayao Miyazaki. I did not like it very much. I thought it was enjoyable, and I did like to read it, but it was not as good as I had been told it was. So yeah, I think the ending was awful, and I overall did not enjoy it. I'm gonna have to watch the film to see how that compares, but I was really just not a big fan of the manga itself. In the center here, we have Claymore. I enjoyed Claymore. It's been a long time since I've read it, though, and I think it's waned a little bit, but overall, it's still a very fun sort of fantasy action series. You know, and it comes in a very, very nice box set by Viz. And then last up for my box sets, I have the Ghost in the Shell Deluxe Edition box set, which is all 3 hardcovers. So it's very nice to have that. Ghost in the Shell is extremely wordy, so it takes forever to read. So you might want to set some time aside to read those volumes. But yeah, that will do it for my manga collection video. My voice is about to die. I was planning on recording something after this, but I don't think my my vocal cords can handle that. Yeah. And that is my collection update after 1 year from my previous one, and sort of like a 1 year anniversary sort of video for the channel. You know, are there any series in my collection that you guys love as well? Are there any series in the collection that you want to pick up? Are there any recommendations you have? I am trying not to get too many new series, or at least too many longer, newer series. So, mostly just picking up, ongoings and series that are like 5 or fewer volumes, really. But yeah, let me not I can't even think. My brain is like dead. Cannot communicate to my mouth. Let me know what you guys would like me to pick up in the future. What series have you read that you really enjoyed? And are there any new series you are really excited for? I'm especially excited for those Classic Collection Deluxe Edition series by 7 Seas. But yeah, that is my 1 year collection update. Or 1 year from the channel starting collection update. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am Laethas. Goodbye.